Is it true that many Nazi scientists were recruited by the US to work in NASA and that they were pioneers of their initial success, and now whatever they are achieving is primarily due to Asian intellect, India, South Korea, China, etc.? All right. So, Nazi Germany. Uh, so Germany was unified for the first time in 1871 due to the efforts of the great Bismarck, Chancellor Bismarck, Otto von Bismarck, right? Until that time, Germany was a fragmented, disunited collection of kingdoms and things like that, right? So Bismarck united Germany for the first time in 1871, and then he instituted a series of reforms, which completely transformed this new nation into a an industrial superpower. It became the engine that was driving Europe. And Germany ended up becoming the pioneer in all kinds of new technologies, including missile technology, rocket technology, and so on. And it is scientists like Werner von Braun who were the pioneers of rocket technology. So Germany is the first nation that produced cruise missiles and ballistic missiles. V1 was the cruise missile that bombed London lots of times and other places in Europe as well. And V2 was the first ballistic missile, which was reasonably accurate. And so the Germans were the pioneers of cruise missile technology and rocket technology and jet engine technology. And they also had a very efficient and innovative military industrial complex. They were pioneers in aviation as well. They had some of the best aircraft of World War II, fighter aircraft, other aircraft, the Messerschmitts, the Stukas, the Hengels, the Focke-Wulfes, and so on and so forth, right? The British had a good aircraft, the Spitfire, and the Americans had a good aircraft called the Mustang. But the Germans overall had the best family of aircraft. So the Germans were incredible innovators in military technology, rocket technology, jet engine technology, and all that. When World War II ended, the Americans and the Russians were in possession of roughly half and half of Germany. The Russians had taken over Berlin. They are the ones that took Berlin and that precipitated Adolf Hitler's apparent alleged suicide. Yeah, although the body has never been found, apparently we don't know. So at the end of World War II, the Soviets were in possession of the eastern half, roughly, of Germany, and the Americans were in possession of the western half, roughly, of Germany. The Americans gathered as many German scientists as they could, and they were lucky to get hold of Werner von Braun. If you want to see what Mr. von Braun looked like, let me show you what there is. Let me share my screen. So, what the Americans did is they captured as many German scientists uh, as they could. This is Werner von Braun. That's what he looked like. He was a German scientist. This is him during World War II. He was obviously a member of the Nazi Party. And the Americans captured him and a number of other German scientists. And the Americans were lucky enough to capture the cream of the German scientists. And they were taken prisoner and shipped off to the United States, along with captured rockets like the V2 rocket and all that. So, all of this equipment and the scientists were taken to America in what is called Operation Paperclip. Operation Paperclip. The Russians captured whoever else they could find, and those German scientists they were able to capture were taken to Russia. So, the Americans took Mr. von Braun and a number of rockets, missiles, and all that. They took them to the US. Here you have Mr. Kennedy, President Kennedy, with Werner von Braun. And eventually, Werner von Braun became the head of NASA. And he is the person that essentially developed the Saturn V rocket, which took the first human beings to the moon. That's what happened, right? So, the American space program was essentially built by Nazi scientists, Nazi rocket scientists and engineers. And it's not just the Saturn V rocket that Mr. von Braun developed. He developed the entire range of rockets that came before that. It was all done with German technology. NASA did not develop its technology from scratch. It acquired technology from the Nazis and used that and built upon that. The Americans have not developed their own technology. They used Nazi technology. The Soviets also built their first rockets using Nazi technology, like the R2 rocket and so on and so forth, which eventually became a whole family of rockets that they built. So even the Russians, even the Soviets built their space program on the back of German rocket technology. And during the period of cooperation between the USSR and China, Mao's China, the Soviets transferred rocket technology to the Chinese, which was Nazi rocket technology. So the Chinese rocket program, space program, was also built on the back of, on a foundation of Nazi technology. And then they built a whole bunch of rockets based on that technology. So the US rocket program, the US space program, the whole of NASA, the Soviet space program, and the Chinese space program were all based on technology taken from the Nazis. It's only the Indians that developed the rocket technology entirely from scratch, and maybe the Japanese as well, and maybe the French, perhaps. I'm not sure what is the history of the French rocket program, but that's what it is. So all of these nations, they acquired rocket technology, space technology from the Nazis, and the pioneer is Werner von Braun. Right? He was a prisoner for the longest period of time, for many years. He was always under surveillance, and slowly over time he graduated, you could so to say, to become the head of NASA. And eventually, yeah, so that's what it was. He still looks like a prisoner here, doesn't he? Even though he's the head of NASA. So that's how it was. So that is the story. And now whatever they're achieving, yeah, they've got so many immigrants, the Americans. So much of NASA, much of these big companies, they have lots of Indian engineers who work there. And yeah, that's a known fact. So that's the story.